Every year we try to convince ourselves this year is going to be different. So we buy another productivity planner, shiny new goal diary, but these things don't work. See, only 8% of people actually achieve their goals. And what happens to the other 92%? They just stay stuck. They stay in the same patterns. They're stuck in the mental masturbation, the excuses. They're stuck in their own heads. You've never not hit a goal because you didn't have the right template, planner, or diary. The problem isn't the tools in our hands. It's the frameworks in our head. If you want massive success, if you want to hit your goals, you don't need another checklist to be a massive success. And whatever that means to you, you need to reframe your mindset. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Ryan Hanley. And this is the place where we help ambitious, driven individuals defy ordinary and become the civilized savages that they were meant to be. And if you enjoy this show, please subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening, wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you believe that there are more people who could benefit from this content, would love for you to share in whatever way is most comfortable for you, social media, email, text, just tell a golf buddy, doesn't matter. And, you know, one of my favorite things is when you leave comments and reviews. Our team reads all of them myself. I read all the comments, all the reviews, and try to respond to as many as I possibly can. It's just, you know, helps me understand what connects with you the best and helps me, you know, kind of create the topics in which I'm going to address in this show. It helps inform me around the guests that I need to reach out to and book for the show to help you grow. As I said, defy ordinary and become a civilized savage. All right, so today we're talking about reframing your mindset. And as someone who's struggled with limiting beliefs for most of my life, you know, these podcast episodes, particularly the solo episodes that I do, are really, it's like therapy to myself. Honestly, most of the ideas, concepts, strategies, these are pep talks. These are me working through ideas in my head, the things that I want to improve on. And I believe that if I want to improve on them, that some of you may as well. Some of these things I have kind of worked into my day-to-day life and have helped me reach my achievements. You know, I've done cool things. I've experienced success in many aspects of my life. I'm very blessed, but I deal with all the same mental nonsense that you do every single day. You know, the only difference might be at 43, 40, you know, going on 44 years old, I've just learned how to not let some of that inner nonsense keep me from doing the things that I want to do, becoming the person I want to become, achieving the goals that I want to achieve. And as always, the guidance, the advice, the strategies, concepts, ideas, etc., that I share on this show, this is what has worked for me. I am not trying to put that on you that it will, I guarantee success. I don't. But what I hope is that I can put enough ideas in front of you that you will try enough things, that you will figure out the right set of tumblers to put your mindset, to put your life, your business, your relationships in a place where you wake up every day energized, and that the things that you do add energy to your life. They don't take energy away, because that's how we get to where we want to go. If you are doing energy draining activities all day, every day, you will never reach your goals. It'll never happen. We can't refill our energy bucket fast enough if it's constantly being drained. We have to come up with the frameworks, the mindsets, the strategies, the systems that drain our energy less when they're things we don't necessarily want to do but have to do, and that we're doing enough of the things that create energy, that build energy inside us, that we're just driven to come back day after day after day to hit those goals. I in no way consider myself a finished product. I don't ever want to come off in these kind of lecture style solo episodes that this is me preaching to you. I am working through a lot of these ideas in real time, many of which I have put into practice and I share when I have, some of which are things that I'm researching that I want to put in practice into my life. Because for me, one of the great energy creators is a commitment to improvement on a day-to-day basis. And we all have setbacks. There are plenty of things that I do that, are not always productive, that aren't exactly the way I want to handle something, or I react in a way that I don't particularly care for. And, maybe you got to apologize to someone after. And then you try to learn from that and change. So, I never want to come off in these episodes like I believe in any way that I'm a finished product. I am not. This is a lifelong pursuit of personal development and peak performance. And I hope that you appreciate and understand that. And I love that you continually show up to come along on this ride, because none of us were meant to be ordinary. That's why I put the defy ordinary in the tagline. And inside us is this civilized savage, this absolute monster who also knows how to integrate into society to be a good person, a caring person, a compassionate person that gets things done. That's the idea of a civilized savage. It's inside you. It's inside me. And I want to embody that every day. I want to be someone who people can look to in a time of need, whether that is empathy, compassion, understanding, or it's bust down doors, tear things up, and get shit done. And we all have it inside us. And I think a big part of why we're put on this earth is figuring out our particular set of tumblers that unlocks that power for us. Okay. All right. So with that done and past us, I'm going to share 3 reframes, 3 mindset reframes today with you. But before we do that, let's just talk quickly about what mindset reframes are and why they actually matter, why we need to reframe our mindset. Because oftentimes we're not off on what a mindset needs to be. We might just be approaching that mindset from the wrong direction. So I'm going to share with you a few examples that I found from some of the people that I admire their work. So I want to start by breaking down how some of the most influential individuals that all of us have heard of, how they created mindset reframes, how they reframe the way they view their work, their lives to create massive success. And we'll start with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is famous for saying no. The quote, "Focus is about saying no to say yes." This is what allowed Apple to go from being nearly bankrupt to a $3 trillion empire. When Steve Jobs came back into the company after being fired, after his hiatus into Pixar, when he came back into Apple, they had all these different product lines. They were saying yes to this vendor's request and this company's request. And Steve Jobs cut tons of programs. And he said, we are going to focus. We are going to say no to everything that doesn't align with our core mission so we can be the absolute best at that thing, which will unlock doors for us to say yes to opportunities in the future. But oftentimes, with the best intentions, we say yes to far too many things, which forces us to say no to other things that could be exponential growth opportunities for us. All right, the second reframe is from someone that we actually just recently dove deep into in an interview I did with Eric Jorgensen. So if you go back a few episodes to that conversation that I had with Eric Jorgensen, he wrote the Almanac of Naval, he wrote the Anthology of Balaji, and he has a new book coming out in the fall called The Book of Elon Musk. And Elon's famous reframe is first principles. The quote from Elon, I think it's most important to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. And what that means is getting down to the core component elements of the problem, not thinking in large terms, not staying at the surface, but digging down. And as Eric said in our interview, you have to go beyond the first why, right? You don't just ask, if this particular, in the case of Elon, the most famous example is the rocket ships, right? He wants to put these rocket ships up into space. He wants to eventually travel to Mars. And the current problem is it's just too expensive to do it. So the question isn't, why is it so expensive? The question is, why is it so expensive? Well, to create, this particular rocket module, it costs this. And you could say, well, where can we find a cheaper rocket? Elon then went beyond the first why to say, well, what are the component part costs and why do they cost so much? And why does a rocket that might cost $500,000 to build based on the component parts cost $20 million to actually purchase once put all together. And getting to the absolute first principle idea of the specific component cost of each piece of material down to the price of the aluminum that they were buying to coat certain pieces of a rocket. I'm not a rocket engineer, so don't actually know all the names of them, but he got all the way down to the negotiation and sourcing of the actual aluminum used for the parts that would then be engineered, manufactured, and then compiled and placed together in the rocket so that he could drastically reduce the cost. But he would never have got there if he stopped at the first why. He got down to first principles. And that's a complete reframing of the mindset of why does something cost so much. The third and final reframing kind of example that I want to give you before we get into specific strategies that I want to share with you today comes from Sara Blakely. And Sara Blakely is the founder of Spanx, incredibly successful, tons of books written about her, amazing. If you ever see her do interviews, just very dynamic individual, big fan of Sara Blakely. And she credits her father actually for reframing how she thinks about failure. The quote that she heard at the dinner table from her father that she then carried with her entire life is, "What did you fail at today?" So instead of what most of us ask our children or ourselves is, "What amazing thing that I do today?" her father would ask her, "What did you fail at today? What was the miss? Where did you go wrong?" And then reframing that not as, well, I should feel bad about myself because I got a bad grade on a test or I did poorly in a sporting event, but what were the things that I could do differently next time to make sure that's not a fail, right? So the reframe is, instead of considering our wins at the end of every day, consider our failures, and then going a step beyond that to not just think, well, okay, and marinating on our failures. What are the things that I could do, right? Frame them as lessons. What are the things that I could do better next time to make sure that that same situation doesn't create a fail, it creates a win? So these are examples of some of our most prolific and successful business entrepreneurs, leaders that our country has ever seen, right? They live by these mindset ideas and these slight reframes that take common ideas, ordinary ideas, and turn them into extraordinary strategies by which they run their life and drive the mass success that they were ultimately able to achieve. The common thread between all of them is that they didn't let their circumstances dictate their success. They rewrote their narratives. They didn't take the standard platitude advice, the standard cliche mindset. They didn't live and die by that idea. They analyzed it and turned it and twisted it and pivoted it and took it from different angles to fit it into their particular life situation, how their brain works, how the success they wanted to have, the goals they had, who they were. They reframed these ideas to allow them to approach each day from a position of power and opportunity. And we can all do the same thing. There's nothing special about these individuals if you take away their success. They're human beings just like all of us. They have demons just like all of us. They have health issues. They have relational issues. They have family issues. They have all these different, obstacles that they run into just like all of us. And if you take away their success and look at them as simple humans, there is nothing different about them than us, which means we can do the same things that they can do. So let's dig into the 3 mindset reframes that I want to share with you today that I think are kind of easy to grab onto, easy to implement ideas that if we're struggling with this concept or we don't necessarily know where to start, right? Take one of these, take whichever one feels like it can be the most beneficial to you and try it. All right. Mindset reframe. Number 1, write down what you're willing to give up. If you feel overwhelmed, if you feel frustration, if you feel like there's too much going on for you to ever get ahead, if you're not willing to sacrifice for your goals become the sacrifice. Another quote from Steve Jobs: innovation is saying no to 1,000 things. And you can replace innovation with personal improvement, with sales success, with relational success. What are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up golf on Saturday to improve the relationship with your children and your spouse? Are you willing to give up that bowl of ice cream that's your comfort treat at the end of the night to improve your physical health and your wellness and reduce your body weight? But we can't just stop at thinking about it. We have to write them down. What are those sacrifices? So the common platitude here would be, what are you willing to do? The reframe is, what are you willing to not do? And it could just be one thing. Sometimes this idea is taken to the extreme and we're going to cut out all treats and we're going to stop drinking and we're going to, and that doesn't work. Start with one thing. Cut out one thing. Make one sacrifice and see how it impacts your life. Maybe cut that treat down or that ice cream that you eat at the end of the night to once. Earn it, right? Earn it. I talk to my kids about this. Just like all kids, they love technology. And what I say is, get your homework done, get your work done for school, do some sort of physical activity. It could be as simple as, 50 push-ups, go out, do some pull-ups in the garage, go down and do some tee work. They're baseball players. Go downstairs and dribble the basketball for a little while, do some work on your ball handling, get a little better at your real life, your physical life, right? I always tell them, don't optimize your virtual life, optimize your physical life, right? Get your work done at school, work on your brain, do a little bit of physical work. That could just be exercise or dribble a ball, hit off a tee. Then you've earned your technology. Then get after it. I don't care after that. You want to watch TV? You want to play video games? I'm all good as long as you get your work done first. Earn it. So what is that one thing that you're willing to sacrifice in order to hit your goal? Start with one thing. That feels good. That integrates well. Find a second thing. Simple reframe. What are you willing to give up? Not what you're willing to do. What are you willing to give up to hit your goals? All right, reframe number 2. Problems have to be solved backwards. The quote here is from Charlie Munger. Many problems can't be solved forward. You need to think in reverse. So we oftentimes obsess over the chasm to the outcome. Too often we obsess over chasing the outcome, and we think through this path that gets us to success. There's this scene in Dune 2, if you've watched that movie. I love science fiction. I read the book. So Dune 2, there's this point after when Paul Atreides has kind of drank the worm poison or whatever, and his mind has expanded, and his mother asks him, kind of like, what's going to happen next? And he said, we're surrounded by enemies, but there's one path through that I can see, right? I love that scene, but it's very poor advice for us since we haven't drank special fictional poison that allows us to see multiple outcomes at once, right? We chase this outcome. And what Charlie is telling us is if we think to the outcome and we work backwards, what we see are the things we need to avoid, right? What do we need to avoid? Not what do we need to do? What's the perfect path? Where are the roadblocks that are going to catch us? Can we start to see around corners? When we think in reverse, we can start to predict the pitfalls, the obstacles, the challenges, and we can figure out ways to avoid those obstacles before they ever happen. Now, we can never predict the future 100%. There are always going to be black swan events. But in most cases, the things that catch us are things that we should have seen if we were thinking about what we needed to avoid as much as the things that we needed to do to get to where we wanted to go. So again, thinking about the health example, you want to lose 10 pounds in the first quarter of 2025. What do you need to avoid? Well, I need to avoid binge watching Netflix to midnight because that's going to reduce my energy for the next day. I need to avoid putting myself in situations where I'm going to maybe overdrink alcohol or eat too many sweets or treats. I need to avoid those things, right? What are the pitfalls? What are the places? What are the situations that create the obstacles, that create the anchors to our success? The way to get there is not thinking, what do I need to do today forward, but thinking, okay, in 10 years, I'm on top of this mountain. Think backwards of all the things that we would have to avoid in order to get there. And what you're going to find are at least a few things that we can position ourselves either personally or in our professional life, that we can position ourselves to make sure that those things do not stop us from getting to the top of that mountain. So thinking backwards, thinking about what do we need to avoid, not always just what do we need to do. Reframe number 3, and this is a big one because comparison is an enormous issue in our society today with social media and how much access we have to everyone's accolades on, LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever social media platforms you spend time on. We need to study 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, not 10 steps ahead. The quote here, and this is an anonymous quote, "You're wasting time studying the wrong people. Stop obsessing over peers. Start learning from giants." Don't look at those that you consider peers, that you consider to be at the same level, and compare yourself to them. Find the person who's already done the thing you want to do, who's already living the life that you want to live. And then this is the key to this reframe. Back engineer their life and the things that they did to get to where they are. And that could be simple internet research. That could be reaching out to them for a phone call. That could be, buying coffee for them and having them sit down with you and asking them questions about what they did when they were at your level. Someone who's 20 years ahead, you can't live their lifestyle, right? When someone's 20 years ahead of you, has made their money, has set their life up, has, positioned themselves in a way to be in a position that you want to be in, trying to mirror their life today is not going to work. Figure out what they were doing way back when they were in the position that you were in. Find out what were the tactics, what were the ideas, what were the mindsets, what were the strategies, what were the systems that they put in place in their life to get to that point 20 years in the future. Because they weren't doing the same things that 20 years ago, 10 years ago, that they're doing now. I guarantee that. And this is one of the hard parts about listening to podcasts from people who are successful when they explain, their morning routine. And you're like, well, I don't have 2 hours in the middle of the day to go to hire a trainer and go to the gym and do a sauna soak and a cold plunge and, have all my meal prep. I mean, of course you don't, because you're not at their level yet. Find out what they were doing 10 years ago, 20 years ago. What were the systems they had in place? Learn those systems, put those systems into place, and you will be on their path, because that, my friends, is the path you want to be on. All right, so you say you want success. It's time to stop saying it. You have to do the work. And I know what you're probably saying to yourself, but Ryan, what about all this reframing stuff? Don't I have to reframe my mindset before I get to work? And the answer is no. Well, yes, but you can do both at the same time, right? You don't need to wait. Pick one of the reframes that I discussed in this episode. Pick one of the reframes from the examples I gave at the beginning of the episode. Do a ChatGPT search or a Google search and find other ways of reframing mindsets for success and pick one of those. Do the work while you implement that reframe. And reframe, action, review. Reframe, action, review. Reframe, action, review. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. The reframes that produce results, the mindsets, the frameworks that put you in a position for success, you turn those into systems. The ones that don't, you throw them out. It's that simple. I don't know what's going to work for you. No guru, no talking head, no thought leader, no exceptional entrepreneur, no amazing 6-figure keynote speaker knows exactly what's going to work for you. You have to do that work. And it is simple as putting it in place, tracking your action, reviewing the results. And if it works, create a system around it. Make it part of who you are. But if it doesn't produce the results you're looking for, throw it out, get rid of it, pick something else, and try again. And do that over and over and over again until you have a simple core set of systems in your life that put you on the path that you want to live. It is a tremendous amount of work, but it is absolutely there for the taking, because this is what the best do. The 3 examples that I pulled, I could have pulled 100 examples. Every successful entrepreneur, business person, community leader, when you dig into their mindset, it is because they took an idea and they reframed it to match the success that they wanted. And then they made it a system that they executed throughout their entire life. James Clear says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Goals are only good as the actions that back them up. Those actions are the systems, and the systems are determined by your mindset. Your mindset fuels the systems. You cannot put a system in place and have and execute it properly if your mindset isn't properly aligned behind it. And you'll never hit your goals if you don't have the proper systems in place. Now, you have two choices here. You can let this be just another piece of content that you've heard on the internet somewhere, or you can actually implement this. Guys, this I know there's so much content around mindsets, but the deeper I get into my career, the more I realize that when your actions, your systems are properly aligned with mindsets that produce results behind them, things work out. You get to your goals. You find meaning, you find purpose, and you find the most positive derivative feeling that you can behind it. Joy, happiness, possibly even bliss. It's wonderful. And that's what I want for you. Winston Churchill said, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Last year's mindset will produce last year's results. Change is hard. Change creates fear. But as we've discussed so many times on this podcast, fear is a vector for action. You are a civilized savage. You got this. Now go and get it. This is the way.